Hi, I'm Diana Dafta, and today I'm doing presentation about the human immunity, and these are the topics that I'm going to use to cover: infection and transmission. Microorganisms such as bacteria and viruses enter the body through the mouth, nose, and cut in the skin, causing an infection. Bacteria are single-coat creatures that can cause meningitis and pneumonia. Viruses require hosts in order to proliferate and survive and causes diseases such as common cold and chickenpox. Fungi create skin disorders like aphids, fruit, and ringworms, while parasites causes parasitic disease like scabies and malaria. Infection can be spread through direct and indirect bites and indirect contact, bug bites, and contaminated food. Indirect infection spread happens when germs or viruses are transferred to a surface that another person touches and then transferred to their own body, usually through their mouth. A cold virus is assumed to be able to remain on into surface for several days, but its potential to infect people decreases significantly over time. Insect bites can also spread infectious diseases through vectors or carriers. For insects like mosquitoes and ticks, this is the most prevalent form of transmission. Food can also become contaminated with bacteria like E. coli, which causes food poisoning and makes a person sick. To protect ourselves and important organs from infection, the body has three lines of defense. Innate non-specific defense. Our defense is mechanisms that work to keep diseases out of our body, to remove invaders. The skin is the body's biggest organ, our most visible physical barrier of defense. The skin epidermis acts as a barrier preventing microbiological organisms, chemical irritants, and toxins from penetrating. If the skin is gazed or cut, it can quickly mend by creating a scab that acts as a temporary barrier, while the skin beneath heals. Innate defenses increase suppleness of the skin and the existence of regular flora, as these factors do not give the ideal environment for bacteria to flourish. Enzymes contained in the secretion of interior mucous membrane can also help the body fight microbes. The filter infection agents, pathogens, and allergens will allow nutrients to pass through. The gastrointestinal system contains stomach acid, pancreatic enzymes, bile, and intestinal fluids, all of which operate as a chemical barrier against infection. Peristaltic contractions assist drive chyme through the digestive system, removing bacteria that could otherwise cause injury. Pathogens can also enter the body through the nose, which is why our nasal cavities are coated with sticky mucus, which traps bacteria before they enter the airway. Although this is not always efficient, humans have microscopic projections on the lining of the airways called cilia that sweeps particles up to the throat where they can be absorbed into the stomach. The urinary tract is prone to infection in female while having good barriers to infection. The female urethra is small and can allow foreign microorganisms to enter the bladder. When the bladder empties, however, most bacteria are drained out, and this is true to both sexes. When the body is injured, it triggers an inflammatory response, which is the innate immune system response to damage of infection, which involves a series of cellular events. The physical effect involves blood vessels dilation, which causes breaches in the cell wall, enabling big blood cells uh, to pass through, boosting blood flow and causing inflammation. Because of the excess blood and proteins attracted to the infection, the spot may appear swollen and warm to the touch, and it is often painful due to the inflammation. Inflammation is one of our second line of defense, and it's crucial because it isolates affected area, preventing harm from spreading and boosting healing. In the diagram, we can see the example of where the skin has been damaged and chemical signals from the cells have been produced to notify phagocytes to migrate into the area to absorb the bacteria into a vesicle called phagosome. This process is called phagocytosis. A phagosome is formed when a phagosome unites with a lymphosome. The contents of this phagosome is destroyed and the digestive system, putting an end to the phagocytosis process. When monocytes become inflamed, macrophages form and they play a critical role in the immune system. Macrophages are a type of cytokine cell that defends the body against infection by preventing or eliminating germs. Cytokines are complement proteins that are produced by a variety of cells to improve the immune response via signaling, mediating inflammation, and mediating immunity. There are more than 30 complement proteins in all, which are activated when a pathogen, for example, is present. They interact to trigger a chain of events that attract phagocytes to remove undesirable particles, trigger inflammation, and make proteins to combat invading organisms. Antigens are chemical presence inside pathogens that aid in their entry into the body. Antigens triggers the immune response in the body by alerting the cells to an impending attack. Neutrophils are the most common white blood cells, and they are often the first to arrive in an infection or damage site. These medium-sized cells adhere to blood vessels walls and prevent bacteria from entering the bloodstream. To carry out the phagocytosis process, monocytes transform into macrophages. On this slide, you can view description of all the immune cells there. Lymphocytes are a type of white blood cells found in the lymphatic tissues throughout the body. T cells and B cells are the two types of lymphocytes. T cells are immune cells that mature in the thymus gland and aid in the destruction of infection and malignant cells. The most prevalent form of T cells is the helper T cells, which regulate most immunological processes in the body by secreting lymphokines that stimulates other T cells to develop and fight foreign substances. When activated, B cells mature in the bone marrow and create antibodies or immunoglobulin. Plasma cells are a sort of B cells that produces antibodies and circulate them into the secretory system to offer immunity and memory. In lymph nodes, B cells preserve the memory of the individual antigens to be employed again if necessary. The immunoglobulin serves a variety of purposes, including immune cells, recruiting, toxin neutralization, and antigen elimination. The immunoglobulin chains are arranged in a Y-shaped form, with the smallest chain having the potential to attack an antigen. As you can see, the immunoglobulin is given its name based on the type of a heavy chain it contains. On this slide, the common immunoglobulin variants are depicted. The common immunoglobulin is IgG. It is the only immunoglobulin that can convey some protection from mother to baby via the umbilical cord and placenta. The IgE binds the cell in mucous membrane and the skin, allowing them to produce histamines, hay fever, and asthma, all signs of IgE-mediated allergic responses. IgM is capable of annihilation, the intruder on its own. IgM likes IgM activated the complement system, and the two versions can work together as an antitoxin against germs that causes diphtheria, tetanus, botulism, and anthrax. The immune system uses antigens found throughout the body as well as in the hazardous disease to determine whether it should fight or not, depending on whether the antigens are aliens or self. Foreign antigens are those found in pathogens that are memorized by B cell when they are determined in the body, causing antibodies production. Self-markers, also known as major histocompatibility complex molecules, are unique surface molecules found on all nucleated cells that designate them as self. The immune system possesses self-tolerance, meaning it won't assert cells that have these MHC class 1 identification markers. Although a person may acquire a autoimmune diseases in rare situation, which occurs when B or T cells get activated against the antigens. The reason for this is unknown. The occurrence of an unbalanced immune response produced by repeated exposure to a particular antigen is known as hypersensitivity. As shown in this slide, several instances of hypersensitivity illness can be classified according to their underlying cases. Autoimmune illness can manifest itself in a variety of ways, including weariness, muscles such as low fever, and inflammatory. Rheumatoid arthritis is a type of immune illness that produces pain, swelling, and stiffness in the joint, according to the NHS. It is a long-term condition that causes pain, swelling, and stiffness in the joint. Rheumatoid arthritis has no known cure, but symptoms can be managed with the medication and supportive therapies like physiotherapy. Correction of joint issues can also be accomplished by surgery. Women and smokers, as well as a person with a family history of autoimmune diseases, are thought to be at a high risk of developing an autoimmune disease. Multiple sclerosis (MS) is another frequent autoimmune disease defined by the NHS, a condition affecting the brain and spinal cord that can cause a wide variety of potential symptoms, including problems with vision, arm or leg mobility, feeling balance. Multiple sclerosis is divided into two forms. The most prevalent is which the relapsing limiting MS, which manifests as period of renewal or worsening symptoms over a period of time before gradually improving over time. A brief course of steroid therapy is given to people with MS, as well as a treatment for specific symptoms with bladder control issue and muscle stiffness. An organ transplant is a life-saving treatment that replaces a malfunctioning organ with a healthy organ donated by a donor. Unfortunately, the immune system does not always accept the donor organ, mistaking it for foreign agent, and rejection of transplanted organ occurs as a result. The immune system can recognize antigens on the surface of the cell as alien self, and it's mentioned earlier in the presentation. When an organ is transplanted, the immune system may fail to recognize the antigens of the organ and launch an attack. Physicians will use a method called tissue type to try to match both the organism donor and the recipient as closely as possible to improve the chances of the organ being accepted by the body. Monoclonal antibodies are also utilized during the after surgery to combat particular T cells that are known to trigger rejection. If you are rejected, it will be one of the three categories depicted on the slides. Acute rejection is the most prevalent type of rejection seen on all recipients with experience some level of acute rejection. If a patient is given the long blood type, this is an example of the hyperculture rejection. Active immunity refers to the ability to resist a disease by producing antibodies, either natural or artificial. Exposure to specific pathogens such as common cold causes natural active immunity to develop. There are many different types of common cold, but once the body is exposed to one, the immune system produces antibodies to fight the viruses, which are then stored in memory B cells as immunity to the strain. Antigens are developed to the body are then developed. Antibodies are transferred from the person to person in nature. Passive immunity, as in the developed to the body vaccine, causing the immune system to react. This results in artificial immunity. This reaction, like the active responses, increases the development of antibodies and memory cells. If the body becomes contaminated with naturally occurring antigens following immunization, the body has the ability to combat and kill them before illness symptoms appears. Immunology method is the term for this. Antibodies are transferred from person to person in naturally. Passive immunity, as in instance of a mother and her unborn child. Immunity that is hidden on this manner lasts up to 6 months. When a person receives antibodies generated by someone else in the form of a transfusion or injection, this is known as artificial induced passive immunity because the immune system is not stimulated throughout this procedure. Protection from artificial generated passive immunity lasts only few weeks. In order to provide immunity, a vaccine contains a little amount of pathogens with promoted antibody synthesis. In a vaccination, pathogens can be treated with live cells, harmless fragrance. Pathogens produce poison, dead, and vaccination strains your immune system. How to build antibodies that protect you from diseases. According to the NHS, learning with this through vaccination is significantly safer for the immune system than contracting and treating infections. The immune system can typically defend for many years once it has learned how to combat a disease. The main reaction in the process that occurs when a pathogen enters the body for the first time. After lymphocytes have identified the antigens, the plasma cells must generate a suitable antibody, which takes time. During time to time, the body is prone to the developing symptoms. If the body is exposed to the same pathogens again, it will respond with a secondary reaction that is much faster than the main pathogens. Again, it will respond to the main response. Memory cells are able to recognize pathogens quickly and make the necessary antibodies to combat them frequently before symptoms appears. Measles is described as a highly infectious viral disease that can lead to significant consequences such as pneumonia. In an article for the Vaccine Knowledge Project, the graph below consists of public health in England. It depicts the number of measles cases reported in England, Wales in 1940 to 1995. The first measles vaccine launched in 1968, as seen in the graph, and had significant impact on the number of cases in 1988. A second vaccination containing measles viruses, known as MMR, was developed, resulting in a further decrease in the number of cases reported. Herd immunity is a method of conferring protection to individuals of the community who are unable to be vaccinated, such as newborn babies, people who are ill, without requiring them to come into touch with the pathogens, either natural or artificial. Herd immunity is based on the idea that if the majority of the population is protected by vaccination, or natural immunity, illness are less likely to spread. Pathogens can present with a variety of antigens, making it challenging for the body to protect itself against all of them. Pathogens also have antigen variability, which causes the same issues as antigen variations. Because same illness are easily transmitted from person to person and some populations suffer more than others, the threshold of immunization necessary to establish herd immunity can be affected by the transmissibility and severity of the pathogen microorganisms. Herd immunity is more difficult to establish in today's world since our world is more globally connected than ever before, leaving us vulnerable to global pandemic of coronavirus outbreak in 2020. Before immunization, diseases including measles, polio, and whooping cough were a significant cause of juvenile death. Without vaccine, we are all at danger of catastrophic sickness and disability for illness, including measles, meningitis, pneumonia, tetanus. According to the World Health Organization, the vaccines are thought to save between 2 to 3 million lives per year. Smallpox was declared eradicated via a worldwide immunization program by the World Health Organization in 1979, and polio has not been observed in Europe since 2002. In the United Kingdom, children receive 11 immunization to protect them from diseases such as diphtheria, tetanus, polio, measles, mumps, rubella, influenza. With parental approval, this immunization, if they administered of present type in the child life by health visitors, nurse, and GP. The NHS has added pharmaceutical list of medical professionals to help enhancing the vaccine update over the years since vaccines were originally introduced. This is though added to of full-time jobs and families to be able to find time to visit the clinic for vaccination. Factors influencing COVID-19 vaccination update across minority ethnic groups were outlined. Vaccine update has been lower in areas with a higher proportion of minority ethnic group population, and barriers to vaccine intake include perception of risk, low confidence in vaccine, distract access barrier, inconvenience, social demographic context, and lack of endorsement to vaccine offer. Thanks for listening. That's the end of my presentation.